Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. My name is Joe and today I'm joined by Mark, aka the FPL General, to help you and us try to make sense of getting a team together for FPL this season. Welcome, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well, Joe. Good to be back recording these. It only feels like yesterday we did one towards the end of last season. The time has flown by, so it's good to be back. And yeah, I haven't done too much tinkering yet. I've kind of been easing myself back into content, so be looking forward to this chat, and I'm sure there'll be some interesting discussion.
Yeah, as I was preparing some of the slides as well, it's helped me a bit sort of cement some of my views and sort of left a few things up in the air as well. But we'll get onto that a bit later. Before we get on with the show, what we'll do is just wanted to give a plug to the members area in Fantasy Football Scout because we've had something exciting in the last couple of weeks. We've launched a new app, which is fantastic. So in the members area, usually you can have the comparison tool, heat maps, and obviously access to lots of articles as well. But also with the app now, you can get all this access to the planner tool from FPL Plan, and it's all integrated with Rate My Team. Basically, a solver, the usual AI type tool there, but very good. And and so you downloaded it just this very day.
Yeah, there was a lot of buzz towards the end of last week about the app getting launched. I had to wait a little bit longer, us Android users, but finally we got it. And yeah, this morning downloaded it, had a quick look through, fixture ticker, comparison tools. First thing I did was have a little look at Odegaard versus Bruno. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's very slick, very nice, and it's great to finally have it. So
Yeah.
yeah, get downloading if you haven't already.
Yeah, definitely. Wise words there. So what we're going to do today, we're just going to have a very brief look at the fixtures because they've been, shown on multiple videos all the time, just to sort of get us thinking about the season start as well. We'll also got lots and lots of stats to go through from last season just to see if those players are worth getting in this time around. We'll showcase a Captaincy Matrix as well, which I found quite useful for the first 6 game weeks. And then, crucially, Mark will reveal his latest draft as well. I've already revealed some of my drafts. Salah and Haaland, just Haaland on his own. But this one might be a little bit different to that one. Okay, let's just have a brief look at the fixtures. This shows first 6, Fulham top, Liverpool excellent, Crystal Palace really strong, tough one in game week 3 against Chelsea arguably, and then Southampton tough start against Newcastle, but very good fixtures all in all. Same with Aston Villa, apart from Arsenal in game week 2, pretty good fixtures. Manchester United okay, Nottingham Forest great first 3, Tottenham great first 2, and then it just drops off a cliff because they've got Newcastle and Arsenal. Man City have got some good fixtures, some poor ones as well. Tough Chelsea, then this lovely run at Ipswich, West Ham, Brentford, then Arsenal, Newcastle. And then Arsenal themselves as well have a sort of a mixed run. Great start, Wolves got Brighton at home, game week 3, then Aston Villa, Tottenham, Man City all in there before it gets nice again for game week 6 with Leicester. So yeah, what's your overall impression? Mine is that there's no like really nice, brilliant, sexy run for a heavy hitter. It's just all a bit bitty.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. Because often in a game week 1, if we do have a top team like a City or an Arsenal from the previous year, if they have a really good first 6, everyone ends up on 2 or 3 of the same players anyway. So it's great to have a bit of a mixture to start with. Just on fixtures as well, we've got player prices, we've got fixtures, and we've got last season's information and the last couple of seasons of information. But for me, fixtures dictate almost everything. So the Scout fixture ticker is always my first port of call. Every week, but especially going into game week 1. And I have been looking in pre-season very much at the first 6 because I think that's quite a natural one this season when we can, roll up to 5 free transfers. So first 6 looks good, and I'm very open to an early wild card as well. In recent seasons, I've kind of been later to play it, but I think with the changes, we'll see a lot of people go early. So yeah, I've been looking at these first 6, and again, as we'll get to my draft later in the video, the fixture ticker matches up pretty well with what's in my draft. There's Fulham at the top. I really like Muniz there. As a cheap striker. Liverpool new manager, but usual suspects in Salah and Trent are always good options. Palace finished the season so strongly, third on the ticker. Really like Munoz, players like Eze and Mateta whenever he's available again as well. So fixture ticker always very, very important. And again, it's interesting because when you look at this one towards the bottom, you've got 3 good teams, City, Arsenal, and Tottenham, who have a lot of good FPL prospects, but do you go there straight away, or do you just hold off a little bit? So I think it's a very interesting fixture ticker to start the season, which is kind of leaning into the changes, and it's making for some variety in teams, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, I find, I mean, when you mentioned about wildcards as well, I'm finding that's slightly dictating what I'm doing. I feel I'm going to wildcard early, and a couple of reasons is one, there's so much more to get wrong, I think. We are going in blind. Lots of people on Twitter saying, oh, so and so is going to be good, so and so is going to be good under this new manager. And we just don't know. Also, we've had all the cup competitions as well. Palmer, Saka's only coming back this weekend. I just don't know what shape they're all going to be in. So it's sort of trying to go with what you do know rather than what you don't know. But I just feel there's more for me to get wrong. So I can just see me wildcarding, perhaps going to game week 4, maybe around game week 6, 7-ish as well. One of those international breaks, I think. I just feel I'm going to be wildcarding.
Yeah, and that's my initial gut feeling as well, without having, put too much into, fixture research and stuff like that. Just I think the real game changer is the being able to roll the transfers through the wild card. So, you talk about we're definitely going to get things wrong in game week 1 because we don't have any information yet. But also, if you can have even just 2 or 3 free transfers, for example, if you wild card for game week 4, it still allows you to get a few more things wrong on the wild card
Yeah.
because you've got a few extra transfers available. So, yeah, I think the rule changes has changed the wildcard approach for me, and I'm very likely I'll have a flexible approach, of course. If you obviously start the season well, you might not need to wildcard, but I think if I was putting a few bob on, early wildcard for me is very likely.
Yeah, I mean, looking at, see, saving a couple of transfers, wildcarding, you keep those in the bank. Most people, have a wild card. You're not going to use it. It's easy to not use a transfer the following week after that, and then 2 weeks after you wild card, you can have 3, 4, around 3 to 4 transfers. So you can have you can store them up. You can have a mini wild card to get out of your wild card if you've wasted it, as the saying goes. So yeah, there's much more to think about there. And but other people, but obviously, if we're like 1 and 2 in the rankings, then neither of us are going to wild card.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I've heard a lot of people mention this, and I do kind of agree with it that the people who get lucky with their game week 1 picks, because of course we all need to get lucky to get off to a good start, but straight away you're ahead in points, but you're probably going to be ahead in transfers as well. So I think a good start is more important than ever.
Yeah, definitely. So what we got? We got lots of some. I asked Mark what he wanted to talk about in this show, and he sent me a list of things. And because I had a bit of time this morning, I managed to do tables for pretty much all of them. So these are the sort of things that he's thinking about in his team, and I'm sure you are as well. Whether you're listening or watching this on YouTube. Oh, by the way, do press that like button and do maybe subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. This I forgot to say it earlier, but yeah. Do like and subscribe. Let's look at goalkeepers first. So you want to look at 4.5 goalkeepers. Don't want to spend too much on them. So I've done a table. I've sorted this by minutes, by XG prevented, which is basically how good they are. How much are they actively preventing those expected goals going in? So if it's in the plus, they're very good. If it's minus, you're bad. Or if it's hovering in the middle, you're okay. Annoyingly for this, the best goalkeeper who has racked up 4 clean sheets last time out, so not great for clean sheets, but minutes per save, every 22 minutes he was making a save, good for save points. The best expected goals, he actively prevented nearly 9 goals. The problem is it's Jose Sarr, who I'd love to see him at 4.5. He was actually in my initial draft because I was so pleased that he was 4.5 because he would normally be a 5 million goalkeeper. But the fixtures are terrible. Arsenal, Chelsea, Nottingham Forest, I'd play him then. And then Newcastle. That's 1 clean sheet, absolute tops, absolute maximum. So we're not going to go there, are we?
No, no chance. Again, it comes back to fixtures always been number 1 for me. And if you see a team at the bottom of the ticker, playing the likes of Chelsea, Villa, Liverpool, Newcastle, there's not going to be many clean sheets there. So straight away, that's Jose Sarr ruled out. And I've kind of all preseason, and what I do most preseasons is kind of get set in a mindset of I'm definitely going to have a 4.5 million goalkeeper. But I remember last season as well, it was very hard to pick one, and a lot of them do not inspire. And some of the ones that I like most have a bit of competition as well, which kind of gives me a bit of concern. Crystal Palace keepers, for example, same at Chelsea. So I've been saying all summer I'm going to go 4.5 goalkeeper with a 4 million backup, but I think I should be keeping an open mind as well because if I get closer to the season and I still don't like any of the 4.5s, and if I've got, concerns over some of the ones that I do like, then maybe I do spend zero point 0.5 more or even, go up to
Yeah.
5.5. So again, like everything, open mind I think here is important.
Another good goalkeeper in terms of expected goals prevented. Second on the list is Neto at Bournemouth. 7 clean sheets, much better. Minutes per save every 24 minutes are very respectable there. That's good. Basically anything under like 30, really. Minutes per save every 30 minutes, every 25 minutes. That's really good. So it's obviously goes up there. So yeah, Neto is a good option. But once again, it's the fixtures. Nottingham Forest away start. I can't actually see a clean sheet there. I can't see any clean sheets there. Newcastle, then Everton, then Chelsea, maybe Everton away, but not really. So yeah, I think we can sort of sketch over him as well. It's worth pointing out that Wolves fixtures really improved from I think game week 9. So I am definitely looking at maybe if I do wildcard having Sarr in there the closer I get to game week 9 and just benching him for ready for game week 9 because I do think a Wolves cheap Wolves asset at the back will be good. Next up is Sanchez at Chelsea. Okay for expected goals prevented, just minus 0.2. So it's like sort of doing sort of what he should do. Minutes per save every 26 minutes. But opening fixtures, City, Wolves away, okay, that's good. Crystal Palace at home, maybe. Bournemouth away. Well, that's going to depend on whether Solanke's there or not, perhaps. But I don't love the first 4 for clean sheets. And also Chelsea seem to... They've got about 5 goalkeepers on their books.
That's the big concern. You might, as when we get closer to game week 1, we might have a picture of who's going to start in game week 1 for Chelsea in goal, but will that goalkeeper still be there game week 3, game week 4? If I can't say that with a confident yes, then again, there's just so many reasons to avoid some of these goalkeepers. And even going back to Neto at Bournemouth, kind of unexpectedly dropped towards the end of last season for Travers for a wee while. So yeah, again, these picks are really not inspiring me with any confidence.
No, so there's lots of problems with all of these ones, and after we've come down to this list, I'll ask you who your favourites are, because it's tough. Areola's next. Areola's XG prevented it's about 0. It's 0.4. Fixtures mixed. I can't see any clean sheets. Aston Villa at home, then Crystal Palace, City, Fulham. 4 clean sheets. Minutes per save is brilliant. Every 19 minutes he's making a save. The other benefit of Areola, if you just think, well, I'll just go with saves for some of these tough fixtures, is you can get his backup Fabianski at 4 million. So you can have the 4.5 and the 4. So if something happens to Areola, you've got the backup coming straight in. I kind of like that. And I have been very tempted just to do this, just to go Areola, Fabianski backup, don't matter about the clean sheets, hope for the best, going to get some save points.
Yeah, I certainly like Areola more than the first 3 names on the list. And again, I'm always drawn towards that 8.5 million for 2 goalkeepers, knowing if there's an injury or suspension, you don't have to make a transfer. And again, it kind of goes into this season where we're probably going to want to roll more so than ever to get as many transfers in the bank. So I think that's very attractive. New manager at West Ham as well. I think they could be a bit more defensively solid maybe than they have been in recent seasons as well. And I do rate Areola. I think that's important for me when I pick a goalkeeper. I need to rate them as a real life goalkeeper as well. I think he's a good one.
Yeah.
And he's certainly in the running if I do go 4.5.
Yeah, definitely. And next name on here is actually my current goalkeeper. I've got Henderson from Crystal Palace. He's 4.5. I do want to get into the Crystal Palace. Other people might go for Munoz, who's 5 million. Anderson as well, you can get. So you don't need to get Henderson. But I just think there's so few goalkeepers to choose from. But Brentford away, okay. Then West Ham at home could be a clean sheet there. Chelsea away. I mean, I'm a Brighton fan, so I just don't rate Chelsea at all. And then Leicester at home. I could see some clean sheets there. Minutes per save every 27.9 minutes. XG prevented. He's in the minus. So there's 2 goals the XG lords reckon he might have saved. He could have saved if he was a bit better. But yeah, nevertheless, just 30 goals conceded. Areola conceded 53 last season. Yeah, I think there's a lot to like about Henderson, especially with so few options at the back.
Yeah, you said you'd ask me at the end who's my favourite, but I'll tell you now that Henderson
Yeah.
currently is.
Okay.
But it really does depend on clarity before the season starts again about Johnston, because Johnston's a good goalkeeper as well.
Yeah.
I think I might have started last season with Johnston, if I remember correctly. So if there's clarity that Henderson will be first choice, even if it's just for the first 4 or 5 games, if there's, injury concerns or whatever, fitness concerns, I can see myself going there. And I think Munoz is a dead cert for my team, but that's not going to put me off a double up because I always think if I'm backing one defender anyway from a team, if I get a Munoz clean sheet, then I'd like to have two. Just try and go after the double clean sheet as a bit of a differential. And I do, I rate Crystal Palace. I like Munoz. I like Henderson. I like the new manager, and I like the fixtures. That's the main thing. So Henderson's probably winning the race for me as a 4.5, but again, need clarity before kickoff.
Yeah, it would be great if Johnston was 4 million. Then that would just be done. I think everyone would have that.
Those two will be in every team
Yeah.
then, yeah.
Next name's for Bruggen. Impressed at the Euros. Unfortunately, he's injured, so he's going to miss the first game week. Could be back after that, though. So Steele is going to be the goalkeeper there. So you've got to bear that in mind. First fixture's the good one. One of the good ones. Everton away. And Manchester United at home. You never know. Arsenal away, though. And then Ipswich at home. And then you've got Nottingham Forest, actually, in game week 5. So you've got this nice couple of runs there. For Bruggen will be back by then, you would assume. And you would assume he'd be number one as well. I mean, the Netherlands national keeper against a very good keeper, but essentially the ex-Sunderland keeper in Steele. So I think Verbruggen will be the one there. So I'll mention the other couple so we can sort of speed through this. But Flecken is of interest, but his figures are awful. His XG prevented is minus 6.7. So the XG people think that he could have saved. He could have prevented those. Okay, fixtures though: Crystal Palace at home, and Liverpool, and Southampton at home, and Manchester City away. So, by the good fixtures, it's good for rotation, I think, especially with Henderson. You see the away and the home games dovetail quite nicely, and in both cases, the home games are really quite good for both of them. So, I think I've got the money. I would just do Henderson and Flecken and alternate.
Yeah, it's always, we always talk about rotating goalkeepers, and I know people still do it, but you always want to free up that 0.5, don't you, for something else. Now, spoiler alert, Erling Haaland is not in my current draft. So that does mean, you've got a few extra pennies kicking about than, maybe managers that are going for Haaland and Salah. So for, two options here, if I don't like the 4.5s, maybe I get two of them and play the fixtures in a rotation, which I don't usually like doing, but it makes sense on paper with fixtures. And the other option then is, if I do just spend a little bit more, whether it be 5 million or 5.5, and maybe it's just, maybe we're getting to a point in FPL where it's maybe going back to basics and going after clean sheets, especially with these bonus point changes and stuff. So maybe it is worth paying a little bit extra. So yeah, very, very undecided on goalkeepers. Don't really like Fleck and didn't inspire too much confidence last season. Seen him make a terrible mistake in a preseason friendly recently, which just reminded me that I don't really want to have him for my FPL team. So yeah, it's I think last season was the same. Goalkeeper could actually be my last decision and possibly the hardest.
Yeah, and well, for me, one of the key things I need to know, which I don't know yet, is who's going to be the Nottingham Forest goalkeeper. They've just bought, as everyone is saying, the 10-foot tall Miguel, who's going to fit somehow into goal. But he may not be number one. We don't know yet. They've still got sales there. But as we can see from these figures, and I'll read this out for those listening on the podcast version, his XG prevented is minus 9.5. That's really bad. He's like one of the worst goalkeepers. So their XG conceded was actually quite good. And it's almost as if the stats, and possibly what Nottingham Forest fans might think as well, basically sales has cost them a lot of clean sheets.
Yeah, I mean they're going through goalkeepers quite frequently at Forest. I think Nuno used to be a goalkeeper. He might end up in goal himself if this Miguel transfer doesn't work out. Yeah. But yeah, again, Forest for me is a bit like Chelsea. Too many goalkeepers on the books. Even if someone does start the season, but has a poor game or two, there's plenty of good keepers. I say good keepers, plenty of other options waiting in the wings to come in, which could be frustrating from a fantasy perspective. So I like the fixtures for Forest, but I think I'd probably be more inclined to get a 4-5 defender than a 4-5 goalkeeper.
Yeah, definitely. It's Bournemouth, Southampton, Wolves, and then Liverpool in game week 4. So you would need someone else then. But if we get the nod that it's Miguel, I'd just take a chance, I think, on that one. But yeah, Sells is just a no-go. His stats are absolutely appalling. So yeah, what's your mind at the moment? Are you you're looking for Henderson and a 4.0, even though they don't, if something happens to Henderson, then you're stuffed.
Yeah, I think if it's a 4.45, it'll be Henderson and a 4.0. And if there's no clarity on Henderson, I do like Areola and Fabianski if they don't say another keeper, because again, save transfers if anything goes wrong. But yeah, my takeaway from reading through this and talking through it with you is I'm not going to rule out spending a bit more, whether it be rotating or just a wee bit more premium, because yeah, I don't fancy starting the season with any of those guys really, apart from Henderson.
No, no. With Flecken there, with this, that's so bad. It's that home against Southampton, home against Crystal Palace. Okay, I think, but I'm certainly not playing him away to Liverpool, Man City, because it's very with Flecken as well. And well, looking at Sells, their minutes per save aren't as strong as some of these other players that we mentioned. Okay, let's move on to, so that's the first sort of conundrum out of the way. 4.5 defenders. So we're going to need some of these because the attacking players are being priced rightly this season. So they're going to cost a bit. So we're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on how much you want to spend in attack. So I've sorted this by minutes per shot on target, because that's a new metric in the bonus points. As well, fouls one I've included in here as well. So I've got the best 4.5 million defenders there, and I've put their fixtures up, and also minutes per expected goal involvement. But they're just there just to show how you're not really going to get much goal involvement from these guys, but you might get them. But top actually is Dunk at Brighton. His minutes per shot on target is 239 minutes. He has a shot on target, which is the best out of all of these. He's won 12 fouls. Everton up first, then Manchester United, Arsenal's tough, Ipswich. I look at that for Dunk, and I actually only really see one bad fixture, the Arsenal one. And yeah, I think Dunk by game week 4 could be popular with that Ipswich Nottingham Forest if Barco is not nailed on then, because Stupinan can double up with him as well. I think I saw as well in training, I was reading that Belieber can actually has been tried out at left back as well. So there's competition there for Barco. We don't know yet. It's another unknown. But yeah, would Barco be your 4.0 of choice, and would that discount any interest in Lewis Dunk, who would appear to be your perhaps best bet of a goaler for 4.5?
Yeah, it's I think everything we mentioned so far, especially in reference to likely to wildcard early, when you've got a Barco, even if it's still punty by the time we get to the deadline, there's not much downside to going there. If he starts, great. You're probably not going to use him much anyway. He's probably going to be on your bench. But the flip side is, if he does start games and he does pick up an assist from a corner, price wise, he could pocket you a bit of cash for that wild card whenever you do. So I'm probably going to have three starting defenders. Probably going to have a 4.5 million fourth defender if I don't end up getting 2 of them. But I'll definitely have a 4 million as basically my 15th player in the squad. Harwood Bellis has been there all summer, but if Barco keeps getting minutes, if Estupiñán's still out, I just think Barco's an easy pick. And again, a couple of weeks, see how it goes, and then reassess afterwards. Which is a shame, because I do think Dunk will get overlooked, and Dunk's probably up there as one of the best 4.5 options. We've always known, what his goal threat is. I think what a lot of us will fall into the trap of doing is kind of just completely ignoring Brighton defenders for clean sheets because of the last couple of seasons. But new manager, new season, clean slate. Dunk could be great value. So certainly don't rule him out. And if you don't really fancy the Barco punt, Dunk is probably your next best from the Brighton backline.
Yeah, I mean, just at Brighton in general, it does lend itself more to those who are wildcarding game week 4. We'll see what's going on. We'll have a bit more information. Game weeks 4 and 5, you can immediately wildcard into 2 very strong home fixtures, Ipswich and Nottingham Forest for Brighton. And because we can now carry transfers as well, you can sort of bench them, move them out gradually. Pedro, that would include up front. Minter as well. We'll know a bit more about whether he's nailed on. I would assume he'd be competing with the Dingra. I don't actually know what's happening with the Dingra yet. And then there's Matoma as well. He's a bit more. But yeah, across Brighton, there's lots of unknowns at the moment. New manager, but Game week 4 could be good. But yeah, Lewis Dunk, I can see myself getting him in game week 4. Bolly is next. I can see he's creeping into a few algorithms as well. Because the fixtures are good and his minutes per shot on target is very similar to Lewis Dunk, so he's one of the best ones. But I don't know whether he's nailed on. I seem to remember getting in Bolly as a differential 4.5 defender for Wolves, and I think I was really young then. So I don't even know how old Willy Bolly is anymore. But anyway, he's got Bournemouth, Southampton, Wolves and Liverpool. Really good minutes per shot on target, every 242 minutes for a defender. Yeah, I don't rule that out. I just need to know a bit more about whether he's nailed on or not. Because if they can keep clean sheets, he's got the goal threat. He looks probably maybe the best 4.5 option because of the fixtures.
Yeah, when Willy Bolly's been fit and he's been on the pitch, he's always been quite an attractive FPL pick. He's a monster in the box. He gets his head in a lot of things. He's certainly got the goal threat, and I do remember those Wolves days when he was in quite a few teams. But again, like you, I've seen him pop up on a few teams recently. You didn't see you didn't see his name at all for the first week or two. Now you're starting to see it. I think, like you said, algorithms and solvers and stuff are maybe spitting his name out. But again, I just straight away I put him in the same basket as some of the goalkeepers. Can I say 100% he'll play the first 4 games? I don't think I can.
No.
Forest have got quite a few decent centre back options there. So yeah, it's one certainly to monitor. And again, if it is an early wild card, it could be someone we're going for in the near future. But for me, it won't be a game week 1 pick.
I'm just remembering. I think I got a massive double-digit haul off him by playing him against Man City for Wolves one time, and so yeah, the analytics crew won't like this, but I might use sort of good old-fashioned football romance to get him in because he's done well for me in the past once for a completely different team.
You need to go. You need to go find your tweet about that when he got you all those points after this video.
I don't know. Maybe I should tweet a bit less. Then I better find these tweets a bit more. 8 Nori. Speaking of Wolves, 8 Nori. I would just park that thought until game week 9. 8 Nori and Jose Sarr. One of those two will be in my team, I think, come around that time. Very poor fixtures first 4, so we'll scratch over that. Next one is a name that could emerge into my team, and I don't know about you. Quansah, Liverpool, 4.5, could start. It has been playing pre-season. Obviously, you've got Konate, Virgil van Dijk. I don't know. He could be starting. It's Ipswich, Brentford, Manchester United, and Nottingham Forest. I mean, there could be 3 out of 4 clean sheets there. And for a Liverpool defender for 4.5, wow. If you got some nod from Slot saying, "Oh, Quansah's my man, I'm going to play him for game week 1 and for the duration," what would you get him?
I think you would have to. I think we'd have to at 4.5. Liverpool defender. I know we don't know what they're going to be like, defensively under a new manager, but when you've got Van Dijk beside you, your chances are pretty good, and Alisson behind you as well. So I'm very, very interested in Quansah. Again, I mean, I feel like a broken record here, but need a couple, like you say, a nod or some information or an injury to someone else that makes it clear that Quansah will start the season, because there's no doubt he's a quality player, and sooner rather than later he's probably going to emerge as a partner for Van Dijk, over longer spells in the league. So certainly want to keep an eye on, and I'll be watching out closely for comments on him over the next week or two.
He's actually 4th in this list for minutes per shot on target, which underlines you could get the odd goal out of him. Next up is Anderson at Crystal Palace. Obviously Brentford, West Ham, Chelsea, Leicester first 4. He is the next best in terms of minutes per shot on target. Yeah, I mean, I've had him in my teams previously. I've always done quite well with him, but I think there's a lot of choice here, and there's not a lot of choice at goal. So I think as goalkeeper, I think Henderson. If you're thinking, Henderson or Anderson, you probably might go Henderson. I think maybe.
Yeah, but I think again only if there's information and it's clear. Like I said, I'm pretty certain getting Daniel Munoz as kind of a fun flair defensive pick at 5 million. I don't mind paying 0.5 more than he was last season. And just because I'm going to pick Munoz, like I said, it's not going to stop me getting Henderson. It's also not going to stop me getting Anderson alongside him, because I want to judge every position individually. And if I have Munoz, but if I think Anderson's the best 4-5 defender, I'll just get him as well, because they won't always be in my starting 11. Munoz probably will be.
Yeah.
but it'll only be when there's good fixtures that Anderson comes in, or I just like him as an option off the bench. So yeah, Anderson's quite high in my thoughts as well. He's always kind of ticked along quite nicely FPL wise, gets the odd assist and stuff like that as well. He's just a good player, and again, I've got a lot of faith in Crystal Palace. So yeah, I think he's right up there as one of the best 4.5s.
And next up, I'm going to mention these two together because, as those watching on the video version will notice, is with their fixtures, they dovetail quite nicely home and away, and they're very good fixtures at home for them. So we've got Robinson at Fulham, Manchester United. First off, you can bench him, but then you can play him at Leicester at home. Ipswich away, you could bench him or play him, and then you got West Ham at home. Meanwhile, Mikalenko 4.5 at Everton. You got Brighton at home. First off, Tottenham away. Well, you can play Robinson for that one. Bournemouth at home. You got a nice choice of two good. You can play them both even, and then you've got Aston Villa away for Mikalenko. But it's fine if you've got Robinson as well because he's got West Ham at home. Also fine if you've got Anderson. He's got Leicester at home. So yeah, I mean at the moment I'm definitely minded to have Mikalenko at the moment. The way the fixtures are, I think they're marginally better because Robinson has that Manchester United one first off. But yeah, they're both really strong options, I think.
Yeah, and again, this is again goes back to FPL getting the pricing right this year. 99% of the way because there's so many good 4.5s. And it certainly opens the door as well for, rotation. I don't usually rotate third and fourth defender, but I think you certainly can this year, especially if you want to, fit in Salah and Haaland and maybe a few other big hitters as well. So Robinson, big fan of him. Thought he might actually, get a big move this summer. Of course, it could still happen, but if he's still at Fulham, a very good attacking fullback. Mikalenko, again, why is he 4.5 and all the other Everton defenders are 5? It just could be a mistake, and always something warm about having a Sean Dyche defensive asset at 4.5 million. So Mikalenko, and again, decent going forward also from left back. So yeah, plenty of good options here.
Next name is Burn at Newcastle, but you can put any 4.5 Newcastle defender in here. No Europe this time around. We don't know if Burn's fully nailed. They do have Lloyd Kelly. Got Hall as well. Livramento could play, especially if Trippier is off. But Burn, yeah, they have Southampton at home, then Bournemouth away, Tottenham at home, Wolves away. There's actually strong possibility of clean sheets for lots of those. I've sort of removed a Newcastle defender from my because I just don't know enough. And is that how you're feeling about them? It's just lack of information at the moment.
Yeah, too much uncertainty, too many options. Definitely don't like Dan Burn as a pick. I think his ownership's way too high. When I compare Burn to an Anderson or a Lewis Dunk, give me those nailed on guys all day long, even if maybe the team's not as good or maybe fixture's not as good either. But yeah, I think for Newcastle defensively, it's if I end up not liking any goalkeepers that are cheap, maybe Nick Pope becomes an option, or I just pay the premium for Trippier if he stays.
Yeah. Next name, Concert. He's one of the first names on my in my team and hasn't really left. Got West Ham and Arsenal, but then got Leicester away, Everton at home, and it goes on. So those looking, you can look at the season ticket on your app from Fantasy Football Scout, and you can see that Concert's got great fixtures for a long time. Yeah, I mean, once again, I looked at that and with Mikalenko as well, and I just thought, why is Concert 4.5? I would have thought he might be 5. If the Aston Villa goalkeeper's 5, why isn't Concert 5?
Yeah, I think Concert's arguably the best 4.5 defender. Again, probably should have been 5. And I think the important thing here is he's a bit of an outlier when you look at this table in terms of fouls won. You don't expect centre-backs, primarily a centre-back to win a lot of fouls, but 64 last season. Compare that to Dunk with 12, Anderson 23, huge, Burn 11. It's huge. So it's a little extra tick in his box in terms of potential for bonus points. And obviously Villa top 14 last season. It's always going to be a struggle for them this year with all the extra games, and that might affect Consa somewhat FPL wise. But I think to begin with, easy pick at 4.5. You don't have to play him every week, but he's a very useful bench player or a very useful rotating defender. So he's been in my team, and I think he's in the draft ascension. There's a good chance he'll be in my Game Week 1 team.
Yeah, last name I mentioned. I don't think many people go for him, but Van de Ven at Tottenham, he's 4.5. I think if you're going to go for a Tottenham defender, Porro would be the sort of standout for the attacking threat, done well in pre-season. opening two fixtures are great though. Leicester away and Everton at home. Then it gets bad with Newcastle and Arsenal. But if you have him as a rotation with a number of these other defenders, there, for example, Robinson, you've got Ipswich and West Ham, whilst Van der Ven has Newcastle and Arsenal. So I haven't gone there yet. But if I need to free up $1 million, because I like Porro at the moment, but if I want to free up $1 million, that's where I would do it, I think.
Yeah, Van der Ven, I don't mind him as a pick at 4-5. You know, he's got a bit of goal threat himself. I still agree with you though that I think Porro's worth the extra 1 million. Again, FPL should be a fun game, we always say. There's nothing more fun than sitting watching a game with your, right back, bombing forward and spend most of the game in the final third. So I'll always pay extra for that if it means I'm going to enjoy the games more, and then hopefully it ends up being better value as well.
Definitely. Okay, let's move into the territory we might be thinking about captains. And especially for you, if you aren't going to go for Haaland, you're going to want some confirmation bias that the other forwards are really good as well. So let's have a look at forwards. I've sorted this by minutes per shot on target. They've also included their minutes per expected goal involvement and, as ever, their next four fixtures as well. Now, I know you're not interested in... Well, I'm not to say you're not interested in Haaland, but Haaland is top. So he's the benchmark from which all other strikers must be measured against. His minutes per shot on target is the best, every 44 minutes. Darwin Núñez is next at 46. And then Isak at Newcastle every 54 minutes. But in terms of minutes per expected goal involvement, every 81. I mean, he's basically, it's a goal involvement a match, guaranteed, pretty much. But he cost 15 million. So what are your thoughts about it? I mean, he scored a hat-trick against Chelsea on a plastic pitch somewhere in America. So that possibly doesn't mean much, but nevertheless, it's Haaland. Are you comfortable going without Haaland?
I don't think comfortable and not owning Haaland will ever be a thing. But it's something I've basically made two drafts this summer. The first one had Salah and Haaland, and it looked good. It felt fine, but I did feel like there was a couple of shortcuts taken to get there. And then the second one I made, which has been in place now for about 2 weeks, and I haven't really touched it, doesn't have Haaland, and it feels good, but it's easy for it to feel good when the season hasn't actually started yet. It's much, it's about when I get to Thursday, Friday, the 15th and 16th of August, when the FOMO will kick in and the fear and everything else. And that's when it'll be the real test. Can I stay strong and stick to what I like, spreading the cash around, or do I bring him back in? So it's certainly not a case of I'm saying I'm definitely not going to have him, because it's Erling Haaland, and I leaned very heavily on him for captaincy last season. I think I captained him maybe 14 of the first 15 game weeks or something like that. So I've always been quite comfortable to do that and put a lot of faith in him. But again, he's 15 million. The fixtures for the first six they could be a lot better. And if I'm likely to wildcard early, there's always just get him in game week 4 if it doesn't work out. So yeah, I'm very, very open to going without him, and I really like the team that I'm going to show soon. So at the moment, if the deadline was today, for example, I'd be going without.
Okay, I mean here's what I'm thinking of with Haaland, and see your thoughts on this. Get him in because he's at home at Ipswich, and as we'll show when we see the captaincy matrix, he's at home at Ipswich game week 2. There ain't a better one for that one. Haaland at home against promoted side. He's away at Chelsea. That might be a Brighton bias, but I don't actually think that's a bad fixture. Then he's got West Ham away, which is okay, and then Brentford at home. I actually think that's quite tough because of the way Brentford play and have traditionally done well at Manchester City. And then they got Arsenal and Newcastle. So what I'm thinking is get him in, and then game week 3 or 4, ditch for a few game weeks, because we've got all these transfers lined up. So perhaps on a wild card, I was thinking of actually removing him. I can live without him for Brentford, Arsenal, Newcastle. I'm not sure if I can at home to Ipswich. And then get him back in. And because now we can save transfers, you can do that. You can go into that with 3, no hit needed, 3 transfers. You can all the money the Haaland money you spread around, you can claw back into Haaland, and then hopefully some cheaper players will emerge. But I mean, I I don't know. My voice has started to go. Even as I just gonna have some water.
I'll take over. I'll take over. Yeah, it's you can definitely frame the Haaland stuff, a couple of different ways. And what we're seeing on, social media and podcasts and everything at the moment is people are coming from different opinions. So I'm giving an opinion of not having him. You're giving an opinion of having him, and I don't think there's a right or wrong
No.
approach here. I like the way you mapped out those first couple of fixtures because I think they are good Haaland fixtures. Chelsea's not really an issue. West Ham new manager, that's fine. And obviously the big one is game week 2. And for me and those of us, if we do go without him, we really need to limit the damage that week. We know he's probably going to get a lot of points, but you've got to hope that your captain does well that week. But not just that, if I go without him, I'm kind of looking, let's say the first 3 weeks, if I don't have him, effectively I can get two players for the price of a Haaland, two 7.5 million players instead of a Haaland. So you're just hoping your overall, it's not so much focusing on what Haaland does in game week 2. It's focusing on, what's my total points game week 1, game week 2, game week 3. And when you look at it that way, I think it's easy to fall into the trap of focusing Ipswich game week 2. You need to have them, but it's more about points overall first 3 or 4 game weeks. And I think you can get a similar amount of points either way. So I would say whatever people are planning to do is try not base your decision out of fear because there could be pain in game week 2, but game week 1 and game week 3 could be fantastic. So there's different ways to look at this.
Yeah, I think with sorry. No what's happened with my voice. Just the thought of removing Haaland in game week 3 or 4 was filling me with dread. But no, I actually quite like. I think the best thing might be like some merger of the two thoughts, really. So somebody going, you got to go for Haaland, don't go for Haaland. But I actually think maybe go for him in the nice easy games, but happily ditch him in some of those other ones. And we can do it with the new rules this season. So I'm still. I think if I wildcarded for game week 4, I would do that without Haaland, I think, for a few games. Because then you can invest in Ollie Watkins, for example. He's got Leicester away, game week 3, but then game week 4, got this lovely run, Everton at home, Wolves at home, Ipswich away. I think I want Ollie Watkins for that, more than I want Haaland. So maybe you don't even need to wildcard then. You could just simply just move that, and then you've got the 6 million, and then wildcard to get Haaland back in when his fixtures improve. There's lots of strategies around it, and I think it's more nuanced definitely than no Haaland, get Haaland.
Yeah, because the thing about Haaland is Haaland or no Haaland dictates so many other positions in your team. For example, if I don't have him, I can get a premium goalkeeper or 2 rotating goalkeepers, or I can spend a little bit more on my defense. Have an extra premium. I can have an extra big hitter in midfield. There's so many knock-on effects of not having them. So yeah, it's good. It's again, the prices are great because it's great to be having these discussions because last season it was just get Haaland, captain him, end of story.
Yeah. Next to Darwin Núñez. He could be number 9. Well, that's until he keeps missing lots. Maybe he won't this season, but I don't think he's going to be in many teams. Isak is in pretty much every single draft of every team I've ever seen this season. He's at home to Southampton, and then he's got Bournemouth away. So he's just. There's not much more to say about Isak. He's a great asset. He's probably going to be my captain, and he's probably going to be a hell of a lot of other people's captain as well. The next name is Muniz at Fulham. He's 6 million. Now, in this category here, there's also Chris Wood, who's in here. Very strong minutes per shot on target, as well as Muniz. And then you can also get down to your 5.5s. You've got Pedro at Brighton. He hasn't actually returned from injury to the pre-season matches yet. They played QPR and he wasn't in the squad. But yeah, nevertheless, there is that. And of course, you've got Armstrong as well, who doesn't figure on here because he wasn't in the Premier League last season, but for Southampton. So you've got these sort of 4 strikers in that 5.56 million. Who do you think is the best? Because I say irrespective of money, obviously money counts, but it's not like it's difference between Haaland and Muniz, for example. These guys, you've got to find 500,000 if you want them.
Yeah, I always think, historically playing FPL, and you probably remember this as well. If you go back 10 years, we used to focus an awful lot on this kind of 6 million striker or around that, or maybe even 2 of them, because especially if you throw in some of them take penalties, there's so much potential there to get a lot of value out of these players, even just as set and forgets over the course of the season. And I think people will start to, I think we've seen it already in the last couple of years. People are spending a bit more maybe on their benches than they have previously as well. So I really like these cheaper guys, not only for set and forget starting 11, but also as an eighth attacker. If you do want to have that stronger option rather than a 4.5 defender coming off the bench who maybe doesn't have a good fixture. If you've got an Armstrong, a Pedro, a Chris Wood coming on who could take a penalty, could get you 9 points off your bench in any given game week is very, very attractive. So I'm definitely shopping in this market. It's just a case of whether it'll be, a set and forget in my starting 11 in a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2 with a strong first bench. So in my current draft, Muniz is my favorite option, and it goes back to our fixture ticker earlier because Fulham are number one for the first 6 game weeks. Very, very impressed with Muniz last season. I thought he was just incredible, and I'm hoping for more of the same this year. Showed up really well in the underlines towards the end of last season as well. Now, we don't know if he'll take penalties. There's been a few murmurings that it could be him, it could be Pereira, but also I think Lukic might have taken one.
I saw it was a post the above FPL guys put out because they were wondering themselves. And Fulham fans have pointed out that he's definitely not. It's basically Pereira. It was Willian as well. And as you said, Lukic took him whilst Muniz was on the pitch and Pereira wasn't. So that's the end of those dreams.
Yeah, so you're not picking Muniz for penalties, basically. But even that aside, I just really like him. And I like the fixtures. And I don't think he needs penalties to be a good FPL pick at 6 million. So I really like him. I like him more than Chris Wood. Wood is picking up a bit of steam pre-season, but Awoniyi is always an option there whenever he's fully fit. Could he into the minutes? Joe Pedro, it's funny, this time last year, me and you were having a chat. I was on 3-5-2 all summer last summer with the likes of Matoma and Bumo. Couldn't decide which one to go for. And I ended up, after our chat, going 3-4-3 with Joe Pedro. And it didn't go fantastically well.
He scored first match.
He did okay to begin with. But I missed out on Bumo. That was the main thing. But again, I'm drawing a clean slate under Joe Pedro last season because he could be a really good pick this season as well. I mean, again, underpriced, I think, at 5.5. So we just need the fitness to clear up. And if it does, could be in my starting 11, could be my first sub. But Muniz I like most, I think, because of the fixtures.
Yeah, it's worth saying with Pedro, he's got 60 fouls won. Anyone watching him will realise that there's probably, that it should be more. He's just a relentless machine at trying to win penalties that he then converts. That seems to be his job. But if you're a Brighton fan, that's a very good job to have for a striker. Makes him popular. I'm going to mention Ollie Watkins as well. I mentioned about when I want him personally. And I see him in a lot of drafts, and I don't understand why I'm seeing him in a lot of drafts. He's just coming back this week from training. I know he didn't get a lot of minutes, but mentally that would have been quite a tournament for him, especially that winning goal of his. But West Ham away, Arsenal at home. I don't like those fixtures at all. It is game week 3, Leicester away, and then Everton, and then so on. That's when I want Ollie Watkins. I don't know if you feel similar.
I'm kind of biased towards Watkins because I had him basically all season. Last year, and I did fall into the Darwin trap once, but quickly steadied that ship and got back on Watkins. But for me, I just think Watkins is so good, and I don't worry too much about fixtures. I see that Arsenal fixture. Yeah, it's not great in paper, but I'm also probably not going to have an Arsenal defender, so I kind of like the idea of going up against the Arsenal defensive owners with an Ollie Watkins in that game. But yeah, just it's FPL in its simplest form for me. I just think he's a really good player. I don't mind the fixtures. Yeah. I don't think he's overly expensive either with the price rise, and just a steady Eddie pick who had a very good season, and I expect more from him.
Okay, Chris Wood's next in the list, minutes per shot on target every 72 minutes, but we've also mentioned him, and Muniz, if you can spend that amount, would possibly get the nod there. You got Gakpo at 7.5. All of the other non-Salah attackers are 7.5, which could include, I'm going to mention him here, from Bournemouth, Solanke. Sorry, 7.5. He's going to Spurs. So you've got a potential other 7.5 striker going to another quite attacking team. No offence to Bournemouth. there as well. So immediately you've got competition not just amongst Liverpool assets. You've got Jota, Gakpo, Darwin Núñez, but you've also perhaps got Solanke, and of course Tony's not on this list because he didn't get many minutes last season as well. He's another in that bracket. So out of those 7.5s, that, I don't know. How do you feel about any of these? I don't feel comfortable with any of them myself.
No, certainly not Darwin because just him and Gakpo could be fighting for the same position, so I don't like that for minutes potential. Mateta as well. He's at the Olympics and stuff, so
Yeah,
could be laid back. Solanke, I probably like him more if he stays at Bournemouth because I know he's going to play every week and take
yeah.
penalties and all that kind of stuff. If he goes to Tottenham, I'm not so sure. But yeah, not really interested in the
No,
7.5s.
no. I could be, but I'm not at the moment in game week 1. But ask me again if I, game week 3, 4, then I'll have more information. You mentioned Mateta there, another 7.5 asset. He's in the Olympics, so you're going to be another late back to training. But great fixtures. If Mateta was back early, there was no Olympics, then Brentford, West Ham, Chelsea, Leicester, really strong for a striker there. And last name I mentioned is Calvert-Lewin. No one will get Calvert-Lewin, and Calvert-Lewin will get a brace, and everyone wonder why they didn't get Calvert-Lewin in against Brighton. Minutes per shot on target every 72 minutes. Got Brighton, Tottenham, Bournemouth, Aston Villa. Mixed fixtures, but 2 or 3 quite good ones in there. I'm not going to go there because of his injury record. I know that's one of your key red lines at the beginning of the season. Don't get injury-prone players. But, yeah, he's exactly the kind of player that's going to get a brace in the first week.
Yeah, we'll spend all our time looking at the other options, and he'll be probably the first player to
Yep.
score on the first weekend.
Yep.
But it's just he hasn't reached the peaks that he did a couple of years ago. Hopefully, he does this year because another option at 6 million would be quite welcome.
Okay.
On penalties too, most likely. So one not to completely ignore, but can't get behind him for game week 1.
Okay, we've got a couple more tables before we look at your team, and I've realised we've been talking for about 50 minutes. we could actually talk for a good 2 or 3 hours on this because there's a lot to talk about. But I'm aware that we'll try and wrap this up. When we can. It's going to be well over an hour, so hard luck
That's fine. We'll
if you want it to be under an hour. It's not going to be.
plenty more to come next week as well.
Let's have a look at best premium mids. Smaller list this time. You basically are looking at, because you've got money, if you're not going to go for Haaland, then that same would apply as if you're not going to go for Salah, who I've included in this list just as a benchmark for attacking midfielders. You've got Salah, Palmer, Saka and Son, all expensive. And then you've got this 8.5 Bruno against Odegaard, really. Fixture-wise, all okay. And we'll look with the captaincy. A lot of them are captainable across the first 6. Salah, minutes per shot on target every 47.4 minutes. Minutes per expected goal involvement last season every 89 minutes. Goal involvement a game, which is why I've got him in my team. He's in your team because you're not going to go for Haaland. But who's going to join him out of Palmer, Saka? I haven't put Foden in this list because I don't think he's going to be fit for game week 1. And Son, Palmer, Saka, Son. Who would be the one to join Salah, do you think?
Yeah, so certainly will have Salah if I don't have Haaland because I've looked at the first 6 game weeks for captaincy, which we'll talk about soon, and Salah's a candidate almost every week for that. So I think it's just a very easy decision to have Salah if you don't have Erling Haaland for captaincy. The beauty then of if you don't go for Erling Haaland, you can have an extra one of these big hitting midfielders. We know how good Palmer was last season. The price won't scare me off. I know it's a lot more than he was last year, 5.5 or whatever it was more, but he's just such a good player. And I've got a lot of confidence in him. We've got confirmation as well. He's going to be on penalties again, which is good. Saka, again, Mr. Consistent over the last couple of years, plays for, second best team in the league. You just know what you're going to get from Bukayo Saka. Penalties there as well. And likewise with Son, big fan of Heung-min Son. Again, we know what these are all kind of. I know Palmer's only proven for one season, but I think we can put him in the same bracket as these 3. Proven FPL assets. Big performers, big points getters, and it is not easy to decide which one to go for if you can. At the moment, I think I'm on Saka, but both other guys are certainly my thoughts as well.
Yeah, I mean, if it was me, and I had that luxury of that other 10 million midfielder, 10 million or so, I would start with Son, away to Leicester, home to Everton, because that's better than Saka's first two, which includes Villa away. I would then move to Saka for Brighton and give him a go for Tottenham as well, because it's a derby, and then reassess and probably go for Palmer, just as the long term in there. But I do like, I mean, I don't long term like Son, but I like him for this type of run. That's a good couple of early. I can see Son doing well. I mean, away to Leicester just seems to be a license to print goals for him in history.
Yeah, always reminds me of the Kane Son double act in that crazy Leicester
Yeah.
fixture a couple of years ago. Yeah, Son again. He just feels like a steady Eddie, which I do like steady Eddies to start the season. I know what I'm getting. I've been there before. Like you say, first two fixtures in particular, I like a lot.
Yeah.
And even if I did need to hold them longer, if I wanted to save transfers, I never mind owning Heung-min Son because he can do it against anyone. The way Postecoglou plays, it's all out attack, no matter who the opponent is. So he's going to have opportunities in those tougher fixtures as well. So yeah, Son is right up there for me. It's very close between Saka and Son for game week 1, and I think Palmer's probably going to be a pick a little bit later.
Yeah, that's what I would do as well. And Bruno against Odegaard as well. So for me, I would go for Bruno because I can't. There's no one else at Manchester United I want. And with our Odegaard, his minutes per shot on target every 134 minutes, but Saka it's every 78 minutes. So for 1.5 million more, you can get I think, a better FPL pick. Whereas Manchester United, you've got the penalty taker for Manchester United. The only problem is, I mean, you all know this as a Manchester United fan, they weren't exactly goal-alicious last season, but they do have Fulham, Brighton, Liverpool, which is a good, it's a derby, and then Southampton. Which it's actually, historically, I think Southampton away, you know this as a Manchester United fan, has been quite tricky for Manchester United. I seem to remember in the past. But nevertheless, are you looking at either of them?
Yeah, there could be a place for an 8.5 midfielder in my team. Again, if I put a little bit more cash in defense, I might, drop down from that, Saka Son price point. Or look to go up from someone cheaper. I think, Gordon might be in my team. If you find 1 million, you could get a Bruno instead. So I like both picks, Bruno and Odegaard, but the more I think about it, simplifying it, more avenues to point with Bruno. And I probably do put too much stock in penalty takers, but it is obviously an important factor when it
Yeah.
comes to FPL. And I think and again, the good point you made was loads of other good options at Arsenal, very few other good options at Manchester United. So Bruno's your talisman. He's the one you want to have, I think.
Yeah, I mean, also Manchester United, I mean, I'd belittle their goal-scoring ability, but they do have players like Garnacho who are very good at winning penalties. So that's something to bear in mind. Manchester United can easily win 1-0 penalty. Garnacho has caused that. Let's have a look at the Captaincy Matrix, just the first 6 weeks. So what I've done is very biased. I've just put who I think the top choice is each week, and then I put the backups in. Because obviously you can't have all of these players. It's impossible. You haven't got the money. So I'll just go through it. We'll go through it as quick as we can. But game week 1, who is your top choice?
Yeah, Isak, I agree with you. I think Isak is number one. He's got my armband at the moment. Even if I go Salah away to Ipswich, I just fancy Isak, so I'm going to try and follow through with that.
Yeah. If you don't want to go for Isak as a captain, Salah away to Ipswich, Saka at home to Wolves, Son away to Leicester. This is a really difficult week for the captaincy. One of these, 1, 2, 3 of them are going to do really well. 1, 2, 3 could not do really well. But I would be absolutely gobsmacked if one of these 4 do not do well. I think one of them will get something at least, and you want to be on the right one. Game week 2, we mentioned it before, Haaland at home to Ipswich. For those without Haaland, it's sofa time, but Salah is at home to Brentford and Son is at home to Everton, so it's not the end of the world. So that's why I would prefer, if I didn't have Haaland, I would prefer Son over Saka, because Son is a very viable captain the first 2 weeks, whereas I don't think Saka is against Villa in game week 2.
Yeah, and again, I'm looking at this as a possible non-Haaland owner, and it's another reason to go, like you say, Son over Palmer
Yeah.
or Saka. I think I'd be inclined to captain Son over Salah in game week two. Again, I don't love that fixture against Brentford. I prefer the Everton fixture for Son than I do the Salah fixture for
Yeah.
Salah. Sorry, the Brentford fixture for Salah.
Yeah.
So yeah, Son is certainly on the radar.
Yeah, and as I said, preferred Son to Saka. This is where I would make the move, Son to Saka, because in game week 3, I think he's the best captain at home to Brighton. I do think that is the best captain now because Salah's got Manchester United, whereas I do think Salah's a good captain against Manchester United, and I've captained him before and he does tend to do well. But you never know. I don't know what Manchester United is going to turn up. Isak at home to Tottenham, I think he's a good one as well. I think there'll be goals there. Watkins away to Leicester is good. Haaland away to West Ham, less good, but an option. So there's a lot of options in game week 3, but I think Saka's a good one. So I think Son to Saka would be a sort of move I'd be looking at then, I think.
Yeah, that could be one to pencil in possibly. Again, I'm going to try and save transfers as much as I can, but I'm certainly not going to be against making moves either. And if it's for captaincy reasons as well, I think absolutely it's fine to jump around a couple of these premium guys. So I do like it's interesting. I'm just looking at your list here of your top choices, and you've only put Haaland in there once.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think if I did this list together as someone who's not going to possibly not going to pick Haaland, I might have put him in top choice maybe 2 or 3 times. So it's interesting, I think, how we're influenced by what we are or what we're not doing. Because even in game week 3, Saka home to Brighton looks great, but I still think Haaland away to West Ham is arguably as good, if not
Yeah.
better. But again, maybe that's the
think
FOMO in me.
I'm just favouring home games against
Yeah.
teams that are known to be porous or promoted. I think they're always the best for the captain. But yeah,
Yeah.
Ireland is in the mix for game week 3, but I just don't think he's as strong as Saka at home to Brighton. Salah is, I think, the top choice against home to Nottingham Forest in game week 4. But there are other options. Haaland against Brentford, Watkins at home to Everton. Palmer comes into the mix there, starts to be homing into view there for Bournemouth away. And it's sort of around about this time that I think I can live without Haaland, definitely, because Haaland appears in the Matrix at all, not even as a backup, because he is at home to Arsenal game week 5 and away to Newcastle game week 6. I do not fancy Haaland in those. So yeah, game week 4, Salah. So that makes you, what you were saying earlier about Salah being really important, and Salah's appearing as a backup or a main player quite a lot here.
Yeah, and again, it also comes down to, Salah's been so good historically, but then you start to question, is he starting to slow down? And are Liverpool going to fire under a new manager? There's so many question marks here. And then again, game week 4, Salah at home to Forest on paper looks great, but so does Haaland at home to Brentford, and even a Watkins, who I'd probably have if I don't have Haaland against Everton, is fine. Maybe it's a target Everton with my captaincy. Son game week 2, Watkins game week 4.
I like Salah at home to Ipswich, game week 5. No Haaland here, as I just said. Watkins at home to Wolves. Son at home to Brentford.
Yeah, again, I think that's your Salah week, isn't it?
Yeah. And then game week 6, I think Saka at home to Leicester could be strong. Once again, home side against promoted team. Salah away to Wolves, Watkins away to Ipswich, just because they're away games. But I think they're strong as well. So I look at this and I think if you're not going to make any changes, and if you come to a choice between Salah or Haaland, I guess this does say get Salah, not Haaland, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's played into my thinking. And, I did look at the captaincy, for 6 game weeks like you have here, and I kind of came to that conclusion that maybe I would only captain Haaland maybe twice out of 6, at a push 3 out of 6. Yeah. Whereas if I don't go there and I spread the cash around, there is viable captains elsewhere, not just Salah. We mentioned Son, we mentioned Saka. I think Watkins, I'd quite happily put the armband on him nowadays as well. So yeah, it's not straightforward, and I'm no closer to a decision on whether I'm going to go with them or not. So thankfully, we've got more time to decide.
And now we're going to have a look at your draft as it is at the moment. So you've pretty much given clues about pretty much everything here. So it's a case of going through it. What I'm going to do for the benefit of those listening on the podcast version, I'm going to read this out, and then I'll just hand over to you to just explain a bit more of your choices here. You've gone for Flecken in goal, game week 1, home to Crystal Palace. Then you've got Alexander-Arnold, Munoz and Gvardiol, 3 very strong defenders there. In a 3-4-3, Mo Salah, Eze, Saka and Gordon, very strong midfields. And no complaints up front either. Munez, Watkins, I mean, I would have gone for a bit later, but, he's not too shabby. And then Isak, the captain. And then you've got the Brentford backup goalkeeper there. You've got Konsa ready to go game week 3. You've got Harwood Bellis who can play any time after game week 2. And I've never heard of this guy, Sangair. Is he a 4.5 midfielder?
Yeah, 4.5.
Okay.
Just an auto pick 4.5 midfielder.
Oh, right. Yeah. I was going to say, if you are going to stick with this setup here, Spurs fans are going nuts over their 4.5 midfielder Bergvall, who's currently in my team, actually. I think he's going to get minutes. Last 30 minutes, first 60 minutes. I think he's going to get. He looks impressive. I think if you're going to make a gamble on a 4.5, you might as well. Yeah, if you can make a gamble, do it on the cheap one. But anyway, over to you for this team. That's the team that I've read out.
Yeah, so like I said, this is draft number 2. It's been like this for quite a while, and obviously in the back of my mind, I already know some things that might change. So straight away, Flecken will not be my goalkeeper. We talked earlier, undecided. Could be Areola, could be Henderson, could be someone more expensive. So that's going to be a last-minute decision. In defence, Munoz is definitely going to stay. Trent and Gvardiol are in this draft, and it looks fine. But I'm also open to just having one of those guys, and I think it would be Gvardiol if it was just one. And then, for example, if you don't have Trent, Gordon could become Bruno, for example, or something else. Other options that I like, I'm not against Trippier if he stays for the fixtures, and Pedro Porro definitely in my thoughts as well. Midfield, Salah, very likely if I don't go for Haaland, and even if I do squeeze Haaland in, Salah might stay anyway, and Trent would definitely drop out in that case. Eze, like Munoz, is a certainty if he stays at Crystal Palace. Fixtures, talisman, ticks every FPL box. Saka, like him, but could be Son. Gordon, don't like the rumours. Don't think much will happen there, but if there's still rumours, maybe I'll just go elsewhere and just play it a little bit safe. And up front, I just really like this strike force. If Haaland is not in the team, Isak, no-brainer, probably captain game week 1.
Yeah.
Watkins, Mr. Reliable, and Muniz as the 6 million forward. On the bench then, Konsa, really like him as a 4-5. Harwood Bellis could be Barco, and Sangari. You mentioned Bergvall, and he looks good, but my thinking is I like Son, I like Porro. I could end up with both of those players very quickly, even if I don't have them game week 1, and then it'd be a case of leaving the door open for maybe a Solanke, a James Maddison, or someone else. So a good 4-5 if you maybe don't have any Spurs players, but keep that in mind if you're going for a Son or a Porro.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I hadn't actually thought of that, but I might do now when I look at my team. Get
Sangari in your team.
Yeah, he looks the man. He sounds like a drink. What I noticed, the overall thing I noticed that for this team as a Haaland owner is how much depth what you can do with that 6 million. For example, Watkins as the backup to Haaland, basically in those with Haaland teams. But it's that midfield as well against Saka and Salah. I could get Eze and Gordon, but I can't get Saka. I certainly can't get Alexander-Arnold in. So yeah, there's a lot in this, and I imagine, now I haven't looked at a lot of the analytics solvers, but I would imagine they might like something like this because there's a broader spread of players, and particularly players on penalties as well.
Yeah, again, I keep an eye on what the algorithms and the solvers are saying. I don't blindly follow them, but I think I was listening to Luke actually recently on a podcast, and I think he was saying that the solvers like the maybe even 2 of the 6 million forwards. And again, penalty takers, players like Armstrong and Muniz and these guys, or maybe not Muniz, sorry, but you get the idea. They like the cheap forwards. Of course, they like maybe a bit more money on the bench as well, so they probably would have a bit more than I have, and they're probably more open to spending more on a goalkeeper than I am as well. So it'll be interesting to see what the analytics guys do for goalkeepers, because I would say they might not have a 4.5 and they might do something else. So there's plenty of food for thought here.
I was going to say, what they might. I mean, Isak, Muniz, and Chris Wood, and then the 3 million or so that would beef up an Eze to a Son. Salah, Son, and
Yeah,
Saka. Imagine that.
yeah,
I'm
yeah. And
just
it's not.
imagining
I
that
mean,
now,
you're not a
actually.
million miles away from. You're not a million miles away from doing that with this draft. You just take
No,
Trent out as
that's it.
well
It's
if you
two
need
moves.
cash, and it's
Yeah.
yeah. No, people keep tweeting all these content creators who don't have Haaland. They'll probably they don't be fooled. They're going to have him in game
Yeah.
week 1, but I really like this team
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I mean, I'm
leaning
I'm
towards it.
I'm being so firmly on Haaland that even I mean, I kept Haaland when he had no legs during last Christmas. And that's how much I like having him in my team. And even I'm looking at this and thinking, actually, it is better than my team. I think I'm being a
I know
little.
you're a big price points manager as well, Joe, and I just look at this and I like the price points. The
Yeah.
most expensive defenders there, the most expensive midfielder. Then you can jump around in the Saka
Yeah.
spot as well. Maybe it's a little bit hard to get Haaland if you need to, but again,
Yeah.
the wild card's there.
Yeah.
So I just think this is a pretty, across the board. If you're spreading cash, it just looks good.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned about the price points, and I think my very first draft, I was talking about about Haaland, and then not having so many of these 10 million other midfielders in. They're saying, oh, you know what, you're missing out on that price point. But and I was thinking, well, I know how I can get to that, but how can you get to Haaland?
Yeah,
And that's the price point in it, is how can you move down rather than how can you move up?
that's the big problem. If it comes to a point, give me 2, give me 3, give me 4, and I'm not wildcarding and I do need Haaland, or I feel like I do, then it's tricky. But I also think if you're going with no Haaland, you've got to commit to it. It's if he scores a hat trick against Ipswich in game week 2, yes, it's going to hurt, but that doesn't mean you go and get him game week 3 because the good fixture's gone then.
Yeah.
You've got to kind of commit to a strategy maybe longer term, and that will be my approach if I do go without him.
Yeah, I mean, for the non-Haaland owners, if he scores a hat trick against Chelsea, well, maybe that could happen. And
There's
then,
wildcard game week 2.
and then you're going into Ipswich without him. That takes, wow, that's going to take some balls.
That could be hat trick against Chelsea, hat trick against Ipswich, and then I'm deleting my account game week 3.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, basically, what's interesting about these, and I've done a number of these sort of team reveals with other people as well. They're all different, and that's a theme, and no one is right or wrong. Personally, I assume I'm going to be wrong. How can I escape from it? And I think that's probably the healthiest attitude. And so it becomes a marvelous surprise, as I said, when we end up as one or two, or maybe equal first after game week 2. That would be
Yeah.
a nice thought.
I think a good piece of advice game week 1 is there's obviously a lot of good picks out there. We have the fixtures. People know who the good picks are. There is variations. Pick a team. Don't stress. Hope you get lucky. If you don't, wild card early. So don't stress too much about game week 1.
Definitely. Thanks a lot for joining me. We'll be back again next week where you'll have a few firmer thoughts of your team. And I'll be back as well to reveal my team a bit later for another video, I'm sure. And lots more videos, lots more podcasts coming up to help you get prepared. Do check out Fantasy Football Scout members offers and the new app that we've got. And also do remember to press that like button and do remember to subscribe. And if you're going to leave a comment, be nice. Be kind, be gentle to us. Thanks a lot for your time. Take care, Mark. See you soon.
Cheers, all.